Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today we are going to be talking about German destroyers in 2020. Now, the German destroyers a long time ago, when I played them in testing, they were really, really good ships. Of course, what ended up happening was that right as the line was essentially about to be released, and of course, this is after all of us had made content and everything, Wargaming like wholesale changed them, and the German destroyers came out to be incredibly underwhelming. It's partially, I think, one of the major early contributing reasons for the whole, oh, they don't really like German ships kind of thing. And so over the next couple of years, because it's actually been a couple of years, the German destroyers were always deemed sort of very sort of bottom of the pile kind of thing on destroyers. When people say, oh, what are fun destroyer lines to play? The German destroyers never really came up at all. They were always kind of just, we kind of shove those under the corner of some dark room and just pretend they don't really exist kind of thing. And you really had to be someone who really liked them to really play them long term. They just weren't all that great. However, recently, the German destroyers have actually been buffed. And at first the buff seems not very notable because you're looking at it and you're like, well, is this significant? What is this, right? What they did was they gave the German destroyers quarter penetration on their main guns. So that means that if you had 128s on your German destroyers, you can now penetrate 32 millimeters of armor. If you have the 150s, you can now penetrate up to 38 millimeters of armor without needing IFHE. This one change has actually made the German destroyers quite fun in random battles. Now, this is not to say that the German destroyers are suddenly going to become powerhouse, competitive ships. They probably aren't, and they probably never will be. But this one change has at least made it an enjoyable ship class to play in random battles. So the first reason is quarter penetration allows you to hurt a lot of cruisers. So in that very short little engagement that you just saw on the screen, because I'm using my Z52 game from last night as sort of the backdrop, I managed to chip off 7,200 HP on Talon in a very short period of time. And of course, Talon without a heal. That means that in just that one short little burst, the Talon lost about 17% of his HP. I think it's about 16% actually. And that's HP he can't get back. So the German destroyers now have this effectiveness against cruisers, which not a lot of other destroyers outside of the Japanese gunboats really have. That's the first good change. Second, of course, is the fact that if you get 32 millimeters penetration on Z52, for example, you can now hurt battleships through their bow, through their stern. So that's another thing. If you're, of course, playing with the Z23, the tier 8 one, and you have the 150s, hey, you've got 38 mils of penetration on those 150s. Then you can even hurt the US battleships that are deck sections, right? So the guns now suddenly allow you to be a viable gunboat. Not the same way as you would have on an Akazuki or Kitakaze or whatnot, but you suddenly have that capability to actually hurt some stuff. So the combination of that plus relatively fast reloading torpedoes, meaning that you can very comfortably be a hybrid destroyer, shifting between guns when necessary and torpedoes when possible, and then back to guns and then back to torpedoes, right? You can do all those things. That on top of the fact that you have a very, very nice hydroacoustic search means that you have some counterplay options against enemy destroyers, or at least you can be an effective destroyer to help your team zone out enemy destroyer torpedoes from really having super effective capabilities against, let's say, your own ships. There you go. See, beautiful torpedo hits. The torpedoes, remember, are pretty fast. They don't hit super, super hard, but they're fast torpedoes. They have good detectability. On the Z52, it's like 1.4 kilometers. So the reaction time is not great, right? Like those torpedoes will kind of show up on top of you. And the fact that, of course, that, the torpedoes reload quickly means that even if you miss a torpedo wave, it's not the end of the world. You'll have them back really, really quickly. So this sort of interesting combination, right, has made these ships in random games in 2020 suddenly actually a fun line to play. Not super competitive. If you're thinking like, I need a line for competitive play and clan battles and things like that, yeah, that's probably not happening. But if you're talking just purely like, I'm just going to go jump into a random battle and have a multi-purpose destroyer that does a little bit of everything reasonably well, then the German destroyer line actually, yeah, they really are quite, capable of doing their jobs now. It's actually quite amazing, And if you think about it, that means that recently, in the last little while, the Germans have actually gotten some love, really. The German battleships, even though they're not perfect, especially the FDG and the GK, at least their main guns are a little bit more reliable now, you know? And they can still make for some pretty scary pushers during certain situations if they're built correctly and play properly with secondaries. Again, not the most competitive ships, and I don't think the Germans ever were like the super competitive ships, right? I think Hindenburg might have an argument there to be made because of its characteristics, but you know, the German ships were always generally supposed to be something that I think were relatively easy, quote unquote, to play. They didn't really need the highest skill to, you know, be able to do stuff. And I think that, you know, the change to the German destroyers kind of does that now. You know, like this is a ship that, you know, you can be someone new, fire a lot of HE, and you can actually do reasonably well. But again, they're not like the best in class, right? They're just a fun class now. Obviously, if you want to talk about best in class, you know, you want to talk about best concealment, maybe like best utility or whatnot. You know, there's all these other variables. But the German destroyers, yeah, they kind of, you know, after their changes, they've kind of snuck in a little bit here now. And if you're somebody new who just wanted to have sort of a jack of all trades destroyer line that could do a little bit of everything that are enjoyable in random games, I'd be like, yeah, totally. I'd recommend the German ones now. I mean, you know, you take a look at this too. Like, because you don't need IFHE as well on the main guns, the fire chance actually remains quite decent. So one of the things I've noticed about playing the German destroyers is that with their rate of fire, for example, and their penetrative capabilities, and the fact that they don't lose fire chance, I mean, you know, they can actually do some work. They can set some fires. They can really harass some stuff, you know, and you can use that smoke or whatever. And again, if you feel like if you're sitting in smoke and you might be in a little bit of danger, for example, you've always got that beautiful sort of hydroacoustic surge to help you, right? If you engage an enemy destroyer, and especially the higher tiers where your hydro range stretches out to like 6 kilometers, if you have an enemy destroyer that just spots you and then tries to like pop a smoke and hide, there's nothing really stopping you from popping this beautiful hydroacoustic surge and then going in close on them and murdering them while they can't see you. So yeah, absolutely tremendous amounts of fun. And I've been experiencing this more and more recently as I played up, you know, the German destroyer line. Funny enough, there was a period of time when I first started where I wasn't really sure what these destroyers were for. I was like, okay, like what's the role? And it took a little bit to figure them out. These days, again, their guns in terms of like popping a smoke, hiding in it, or getting behind cover, or whatever, and really contributing that firepower. It's effective firepower, right? A lot of destroyers, for example, outside of Kira, Aki, Harugumo, for example, you know, you're shooting, you're getting some superstructure damage, you're setting some fires here and there, but you're not really getting that direct amount of damage that is starting to really have that massive impact sometimes, right? Where with this thing, you know, you can target the superstructure, you can target the bow, you can target the stern. There's a lot more effective areas on a ship that you can target. And yeah, generally speaking, whatever targets you're shooting at, they don't enjoy that, right? You know, you can hit a cruiser in like all sorts of spots and get actually good damage on them. So German destroyers, who knew, right? 2020, that they're actually like a fun line to play. I'm actually really surprised. And it wasn't a huge change. You know, it was simply just bringing the ship sort of in line in terms of characteristics with the other German ships, you know. Again, you can see it, the torpedoes, they're very fast reloading. So technically speaking, I could fire off these torpedoes, you know, just wait another, in a sense, like what's it, 40 seconds? Yeah, about, actually, no, less than that. Let's see. Whenever I hit that Slava, let me see here. Yeah, so there we go, hit. So another 30 seconds from that hit, I would have had another wave of torpedoes going out. That's quite a, you know, that's quite a scary reload rate, you know, for your torpedoes. Again, take a look at this. This is where I would say, like, this is the new enjoyment as well. Oh, by the way, and I forgot to mention, the German destroyers, remember, always did have relatively good AP damage as well. So if you do catch stuff that is trying to get away from you and they show you a broadside, there's nothing stopping you from chunking them for quite good, solid amounts of damage using the armor piercing. So you'll see I start off with the high explosive, and here I'm targeting mostly the bow area of the North Carolina, because 32mm bow means that my HE is going to be able to penetrate, right? And that's where I'm initially targeting. Obviously, the bow is eventually going to saturate, then I'm going to transition over to trying to shoot at like the superstructure area as well. But you can see I can get some like relatively solid damage through just the bow area. Where if I was a normal destroyer, I'd be relegated to only shooting at the superstructure and trying to get damage or fires that way. With the Germans, you just have that little bit of extra room to shoot at, a little bit of extra space to kind of get shots in. This North Carolina is not going to like this. You can see he's going to try to like go into the turn here. And when he tries to go into turn, you'll see that I'm going to switch over to armor piercing, and I'm going to start laying him out with AP here. And you can see that the AP damage is actually quite solid as well. I think I pick up like a 4K salvo there. And there we go. Fun ship, right? The German destroyers, also the ones with the 150 millimeter guns, notably the Z-23, which was always seen as kind of being not great. Today, I mean, the actual DPM numbers when you're using the 150s are still not particularly amazing, but the fact that you have that penetration up to 38, the fact that your shells, when they hit stuff, you will actually penetrate and do damage, the effective damage, I think, is actually quite good. And I've used that ship also to great effect, even against sort of higher tier ships when I'm like bottom tiered. So if you've been wondering about the German destroyers, whether or not they're a line to try out or an experiment with, yeah, I'd say give them a go. They might surprise you today. I mean, their reputation of being really terrible and whatnot, I mean, back in the day it was justified, but these days I would say, yeah, if you were just the average guy playing random battles, this line of ships I think can be entertaining. Let's just put it that way. Again, if you're super competitive and hardcore and want to be like part of competitive environments, then obviously other ships will still be better. But yeah, I have very little complaints these days about these ships. Had a lot of fun in them. Even the like lower tiers, I think the one stinker in the line for me might have been the tier, I think it was either the tier 5 and I think maybe the tier 7 wasn't super great. But even then, if you play them correctly, utilize their smoke correctly, utilize their guns correctly, you're still going to get pretty respectable results. And of course, proper use of the torpedoes, the hydro. There's a little bit of juggling, shall we say, to try to like find the perfect style. But yeah. And also, see, Slava with now 25 millimeter stern or whatever, just target that area and pound away. And I'm gonna get the Slava. Of course, I know SAT, and I'm pretty sure he's just gonna give me an excuse that he's trying to drop Slava stats so that Wargaming can buffer. Anyways, there's my high caliber, and there's the kill. So in terms of that game, in terms of performance, almost 200,000 damage game, got the high caliber. Obviously, most of the damage was directed towards battleships. I think base experience isn't going to be super high, but hey, it's still an enjoyable game. I contributed, got 3 kills. Take a look at that base experience there. Yeah, there we go. Second on the team. There's somebody else who topped me a little bit, but hey, that's all good. Take a look at the damage because that's really sort of indicative there. You can see that very nice sort of balance in damage, right? Quite a bit in sort of HE shells, quite a bit in terms of fires, good amount in torpedoes. Just sort of very well balanced hybrid destroyer right now. And I think the German destroyers are something that you want to look at. And of course, credits earned 387,000 with premium. So yeah, that's it. My thoughts on German destroyers 2020. Give them a shot. Let me know what you think. And folks, take care. Be safe, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.